Many years ago, Ego published a book, How to Create a Perfect Life Form, and the guy who calls himself High Evolutionary bought it and decided to make his own perfect universe. And the first nation that he made were sovereign, because High Evolutionary was a fan of the Mad Max movie. And also, he liked to have fun with the Mad Max queen, Aisha.
Say ah.
Aww.
But one day, High Evolutionary came to Earth, and he saw what happened to humans.
Earth would be a fabulous place were it not for the...
It's man! It is man!
And
Incinerate them.
So he decided to make his own version of the planet, where the sky is more blue, the drinks at the bars are free, and Nicolas Cage plays only in good movies.
exactly.
And so that nobody would fight in the bars, High Evolutionary made a machine, which takes a few moments to simulate millions of years of evolution.
I've developed a process by which I can guide any organism through millions of years of programmed evolutionary changes in a moment.
Whoa. Here I come. Oh, here I come. Oh.
And he thinks that the perfect beings are humanoid animals, living in the environment designed specifically for humans. I think I know why his name is High Evolutionary.
No more drugs for that man.
But the machine had a flaw. The creatures were too aggressive, and Evolutionary couldn't fix it in dozens of years.
See now? There's the rub.
And once upon a time, he made a raccoon, which has a brain of Tony Stark, and after glancing on the machine for a few moments, without even reading any documentation, he knows immediately how to fix it.
Iptonic filters. They suppress the lighting that glycosylated salts is.
And since Rocket is smarter than the scientists, who apparently were found on Craigslist and couldn't fix the machine for ages, Evolutionary decided to extract Rocket's brain and study it.
Their rage is gone.
It was too little filtration.
In the hypotonic, yes, we know, we fixed that, but how did you know?
And when Rocket is very smart, Evolutionary tells right into his face that he's gonna kill him and all of his friends. Obviously, Rocket would try to spoil his plans.
What about the rest of Batch 89, Sai?
Incinerate them.
You dumb fucks are fucking dead!
So of course, Rocket made a lockpick and escaped, which wouldn't have happened if High Evolutionary had at least security cameras near the cages, or even better, a few guards. Or maybe he should have used better technology than a rusty cage. But since Rocket didn't even look around before freeing his friends, Evolutionary sneaks from behind and kills the otter.
Yes, I imagined you'd do something like this.
Well, if you imagined, then why didn't you do anything in advance to prevent this whole situation? High Evolutionary, what are you?
Can't.
Language!
So of course, Rocket got angry and gave Evolutionary a free plastic surgery. And after killing the guards, who by the way cannot shoot straight and managed to hit only Rocket's friends, he for some reason didn't finish Evolutionary, so that later he wouldn't look for him. And then he gets to a ship, and somehow he knows how to pilot it. Apparently, he used technique of Captain Marvel.
You know how to fly this thing?
We'll see. Yes.
That's just lazy. That's fucking lazy writing.
An Evolutionary doesn't have any air defense system, or any kind of device that will prevent a ship from being stolen. So after that, Evolutionary got his face fixed, but for some reason he thought that Rocket was dead, so he didn't hire someone like Ravagers to find him. And why didn't Evolutionary put a GPS tracker inside Rocket while he was being assembled by the scientists? Okay, I see. But many years later, Rocket became one of the Guardians of the Galaxy, defeated the guy who doesn't like dancing, broke the main Dominic's rule.
What's real is family.
By helping Quill kill his father, and also defeated the eggplant. And after that, the Guardians somehow turned nowhere into their headquarters, and Quill decided to be more like Thor.
I don't drink tea. What do you drink? Not tea.
Like a beer, tequila, all sorts of things.
Because Gamora doesn't remember him and has her own life. And when the Guardians should have become famous years ago, Evolutionary learns about them only now. And instead of trying to invite Rocket as a guest and capturing him, he asked the main Mad Max fan Aisha to send a discount version of Superman, who is not even ready yet, and should have stayed longer in the maze. Oh, I mean in the Sovereign pod. But even this stupid idea actually works, because Quill also didn't install any air defense system on Nowhere. Somehow Adam knows in which room Rocket is standing, and he crashes into him to wake up the entire city. And he cannot even hold Rocket in his hands. He should have told the Guardians that he's a fan or a friend, and later kidnap Rocket when they don't expect it.
Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
And since the Guardians don't know such thing as teamwork, they attack Adam one by one. So first, Nebula gets beaten, and then Groot, after trying to give Adam a neck massage, goes on a tour around Nowhere, and he liked it so much that he even lost his head. And after that, Adam shoots Rocket, when Evolutionary needs him alive. And Mantis attacks Adam and gets a broken arm when she could wait for Drax to distract Adam and then use hypnosis. So because of that, Drax would have been killed if Nebula had taken a few more seconds to fix her bones. Adam plays dead, and when everybody leaves, he simply flies away. So Evolutionary sent such an unprofessional employee to catch a smart and dangerous enemy, when even the Mad Max Queen told him,
I tried to warn you, High Evolutionary. You removed Adam from his cocoon early. He's still a child.
And not only is Rocket on the brink of death because of Adam, but also he cannot be healed because of Evolutionary, who installed a kill switch instead of a GPS tracker.
A kill switch?
Set to destruct if anyone goes poking around inside him. He's got maybe 48 hours.
Nebula googles which company had made Rocket, and it seems like this company is not gonna help them.
Maybe they'll have a way for us to override the kill switch and save Rocket.
They won't just give us that information.
Well, that's why we're gonna break in.
So Quill thinks that the Guardians alone can defeat an entire company which has lots of armed guards. Apparently he forgot that he defeated Ronan and his own father simply because he was half Celestial, and when he lost his Celestial powers and tried to defeat Eggplant, he got fucked.
Proper f***ed.
Yeah, Tommy.
At least they should have taken the doggo that has telekinesis. But the Guardians are lucky that besides the address of the company being publicly available, the security system was designed by a monkey. There are 3 shields, and they all are equally useless.
The structure is surrounded by 3 impenetrable plasmic security shields.
And of course, there is no air defense system here as well. There are only blind flying guards that cannot see a huge ship approaching the company. And since Quill's ship doesn't have any radars, and they are too busy eating Zargnuts and discussing Quill's family,
You had family on Earth, and you never wanted to go back to see them?
You've never even gone to see if he's okay.
What's real is family.
they didn't notice a swarm of Ravagers surrounding them. And for the Ravagers, it takes only a few seconds to take control of the ship.
Hello, dumb idiots.
Famous Guardians of the Galaxy, what a joke. But then it turns out that Nebula actually called them. But of course, she didn't tell her team about that. And she contacted them through Gamora, who is now one of the Ravagers. And she didn't tell her colleagues that this is a business meeting, and they shouldn't use their guns.
We have an appointment!
We have an appointment!
With Gamora.
With Gamora! What?
That would have been funny if Quill or some Ravagers began shooting, simply because nobody told them that they are on the same side.
Beautiful numbskulls.
And apparently Ravagers also went through security shields for no reason, instead of meeting the Guardians outside of the shields.
Gamora is gonna lead you to the records.
And if before meeting Ravagers, the Guardians didn't have uniforms and didn't know the location of the records, how were they planning to do all that on their own?
All right, we're optimistic, yes.
Your friend's a moron. I got one of those too. I get it.
But then things get even worse. When the Guardians of the Galaxy are famous and Gamora is a daughter of Thanos, they didn't even use makeup or fake mustache. And during an important mission, Quill only thinks how to get
something valuable
from Gamora.
So you really don't remember anything? We loved each other.
Get a little hard on.
By the way, why did Nebula make a hole too small for Drax, when she could cut it any size? And since the Guardians lost their spacesuits due to lack of planning, Mantis and Drax go looking for an escape ship. And when they have to do it fast, they waste time playing with the guards.
You're hopelessly in love with him.
Oh no. You're an imbecile.
Meanwhile, Quill actually thinks that his pick-up technique from the 90s will make the receptionist give them the record and the passkey without any questions.
I've been noticing you for quite a while, and the way that you smile to yourself when you think nobody is looking, it makes my every day a bit brighter.
But fortunately, Gamora finds a better way, and a few minutes later they get the record. And very untimely, like a sneeze during diarrhea, Evolutionary put them on the wanted list.
That warning we got today, don't those two match the description?
So the guards immediately surround them, and Gamora made them drop their weapons by threatening to kill the receptionist.
The deadly Orgo sentries.
And meanwhile, Mantis defeats a few guards as well, and nobody even manages to shoot her. But finally, when the main guard decided to join the battle, he defeats her and Drax. And actually, he does it twice. And the receptionist still thinks that the Guardians are the good guys, after they broke into the company, threatened to kill her several times, held her at gunpoint, and shot one of her colleagues, so she gives them access to the main computer.
You are in.
And Quill, seeing this interface for the first time, in a few moments finds a way to control the guards' spacesuits. And the guards apparently forgot how to turn the thrusters off manually, so they keep floating in the air, letting the Guardians slowly get to the ship which is piloted by Groot, and fly away, and nobody even tried to chase them.
The deadly Orgo sentries.
Right!
But sadly, the entire mission was pointless, because there is no passkey in the file for deactivating the kill switch.
The biometrics say it was this man.
I saw this guy outside of Records today.
That could store the passkey.
If we find him, we save Rocket.
And when High Evolutionary might be guarded not just by hundreds of soldiers, but also by Jason Statham and Dwayne the Cobblestone Johnson,
It's pretty good.
Not bad.
Quill, who is not even half celestial anymore, decides to go against him with only 4 friends and 1 ship.
You're facing off against a guy 1,000 times more powerful than you.
And since the coordinates of Counter-Earth, which is supposed to be an experimental project, are also publicly available, the Guardians easily find it. And Counter-Earth doesn't have any air defense system either, and doesn't have an army of ships guarding it, especially considering that there are such fun guys as Thanos, Ronan or Ravagers. So High Evolutionary has enough money and resources to build entire planets and civilizations over and over, but doesn't have enough money for security of his projects. And because of that, the Guardians freely land there. And when Evolutionary specifically made non-aggressive beings, they still demonstrate aggression on a daily basis. High Evolutionary, what were you thinking? Of course. And Quill decided to park not somewhere in the forest to be less noticeable, but right in the city, so that the police would inform Evolutionary about the guests. And after hitting a child and scaring the locals shitless, Quill tries to explain why they're here.
We just need to save our friend.
And later, when they get into the house, Quill demonstrates how stupid he is. He tries to find Big Mac and draws a picture of him, when he could ask Nebula to show his image, just like she did a few moments ago, or print his picture. But they're lucky, because apparently Big Mac is very famous here for some reason, and the local immediately recognizes the guy from this drawing. And also, by coincidence, Quill landed his ship 10 minutes away from High Evolutionary's headquarters.
Oh, how convenient.
So the Guardians come up with a plan. They want to go see Evolutionary in person, hoping that Big Mac will be in the same room, and he will have the passkey in his head, and then Quill will somehow extract it, and get away being alive.
That's a great plan. That's fucking ingenious if I understand it correctly. It's a Swiss fucking watch.
Gamora stays on the ship because she wasn't paid enough, and Quill together with Nebula and Groot go to Evolutionary, while Drax and Mantis stay to guard the ship. Why didn't he take them to Evolutionary as well, to have more people when the fight starts? Gamora was already in the ship, or otherwise, they could have parked it somewhere in the forest. Meanwhile, High Evolutionary is already expecting them, and hopes that he can persuade them to give Rocket away.
The High Evolutionary is expecting you. She stays here.
Why?
Policy against weaponry, and your arm is a gun.
But Groot is as deadly as Nebula, so why did Evolutionary let him in? And apparently he bought his weapon detector on AliExpress, because it doesn't detect a goddamn weapon warehouse inside Groot. Meanwhile, Drax decides to ignore Quill's order to stay near the ship, and send a guy to hospital just to steal his bike and go after Quill. What a hero. And Quill's plan somehow works. He walks right into the Evolutionary's office, and Big Mac is there as well. And apparently Quill thinks that Big Mac would willingly give the passkey, and Evolutionary would let him do it.
Yeah, you! I take it the passkey, it's in that thing on your head.
And so that Evolutionary would like him even more, he decides to talk shit about his project.
Better universes generally don't include a bunch of octopuses selling meth to guys with cockroach heads.
They do not.
And he immediately begins to blow up the planet, but not too quickly, so that the main characters would have enough time to escape. And if Evolutionary until this moment didn't know about the criminals on his planet, why did he cancel the project immediately, without even checking whether Quill tells the truth? And if he knew about the criminals, why didn't he do anything before? Why can't I see any logic in this movie?
Because it's not there!
But what kind of logic are we talking about, if according to Evolutionary, it's better to explode the entire planet than to simply catch all of the criminals and study them, to avoid the same mistake in future? The Evolutionary's headquarters begin to take off, and he restrains the main characters by telekinesis only for a few seconds, and releases them without even putting handcuffs. And because of that mistake, Groot makes an explosion, and he and Quill easily defeat Evolutionary's guards, while he is chilling somewhere behind the debris. And Quill continues with his dumb plan, and jumps out of the window together with Big Mac, because somehow he calculated the gravity of this planet, the mass of himself, Groot and Big Mac, the air resistance on this planet, and concluded that Groot after jumping 10 seconds later would catch up with him and grow wings big enough to save him.
Yes, science!
But unfortunately, on high altitude, Quill's brain didn't get enough oxygen, so he beats Big Mac against the ground and drowns him in a puddle. He is lucky that Big Mac's hard drive didn't break and turned out to be waterproof. And just in time, Gamora Taxi shows up, because somehow she found Quill, not having his coordinates on the unknown planet and piloting the ship for the first time. And meanwhile, Adam becomes an orphan, because while he was looking for the Guardians, the main Mad Max fan saw that the planet is blowing up, but still didn't do anything or take off. The rest of the Guardians, thinking that Quill is on the Evolutionary's ship, go there to save him, because their communication devices suddenly stopped working. So if Quill had told Nebula about his plan instead of being a show-off...
Which means it is a trap.
It's a face-off.
Nebula wouldn't have gone there for no reason.
Why are you on the ship?
Just say you, obviously.
No, I told you to go back! You gotta know by now I always figure out an incredibly clever way to get out of a fix!
Of course, it is same as always. The main characters create problems for themselves, simply because they don't tell each other valuable information. Just like in Quantumania.
I will explain everything, but right now, I just need you to trust me.
Right!
And while Nebula is trying to call the Catholic Church to tell them that she found a big supply of little kids, Quill and Gamora save Rocket literally in the last moment. Meanwhile, Evolutionary knocks out the Guardians on his ship and tells Quill,
You killed all of those people!
As I will your friends, unless you
Bring me what is mine!
You are so defensive. Were you masturbating?
and Quill has an answer.
I will rain down an ungodly fucking firestorm upon you. You're gonna have to call the fucking United Nations and get a fucking binding resolution to keep me from fucking destroying you.
Quill decides to go against Evolutionary once again, but this time his plan is even worse. He wants to teleport the entire Nowhere to Evolutionary's ship, shoot a hole in it using a giant gun, and use this hole to dock. He didn't think that this might kill his friends or a bunch of innocent people. And again, he is lucky that Evolutionary's ship doesn't have any missiles or defense system. Of course, why to protect Humane headquarters and laboratory, where he works on his most important project.
I don't give a f about all of that!
And instead of a defense system, he has only high-tech squids and cybercrows, which are trying to damage Nowhere with their bare hands.
Release the Hellspawn, all of them.
Sire, the Hellspawn were created solely to defend the new colony.
Right now!
But luckily, Kraglin gets inspired exactly at this moment, and he goes from this to this in less than a minute. So he easily defeats the entire Cybercrow army, because Evolutionary didn't give them any armor. And seeing the approaching Guardians, Evolutionary and his Prime Minister still do nothing, instead of telling the Cybercrows to attack the ship. Just a few crows attacked Rocket, but they could only break the windshield. Suddenly, Adam crashes into the ship, but a giant hole in the windshield doesn't depressurize it immediately. And instead of flying in some random direction, the ship falls straight into the Evolutionary's one. Where is physics?
It's not there!
And meanwhile, Evolutionary loses the rest of his mind, and when he could use Quill's friends as leverage and tell Quill that if he doesn't give up he will start breaking their bones one by one, he decided to kill them in the most pointless way, by dropping them to Kraken's brothers.
Open the pit.
Sire, our bargaining power will be gone.
But still, Mantis managed to persuade Kraken's brothers to not kill the Guardians, and Quill somehow manages to find his friends in a few minutes while being on a ship.
The size of Texas.
And after that, they decide to save everyone.
There are thousands of creatures on the ship!
Many of them are children.
I'm done running.
And the fight begins in the corridor, which is full of enemies already waiting for the Guardians. But still, instead of shooting immediately at the same time, they try to defeat them in close combat. So of course, due to lack of training, the Evolutionary's guards turn into slices. And seeing that High Evolutionary is wasting his people and resources, his Prime Minister tries to reason him.
You must stop, for God's sake!
There is no God! That's why I stepped in!
And obviously, because Evolutionary behaves like a
Little bitch.
his Prime Minister makes a coup.
I am taking command of the Arete.
But she's not tough enough to finish what she is doing and shoot Evolutionary, when she knows that he has an ability of nuclear sneeze.
And retreat.
And when the chain of command is broken and the enemies don't pose any danger, the Guardians evacuate the prisoners. And while Quill is thinking how he's gonna feed hundreds of new people on Nowhere, Rocket is caught by Evolutionary, who again just throws him around, instead of kidnapping him and escaping from the ship that is gonna explode.
You are an abomination! Nothing more than a step on my path!
But luckily, Rocket has read the script of this movie in advance, so he made magnetic boots, which at this moment somehow disable Evolutionary's telekinesis. And right after that, the rest of the Guardians show up and kick the bad guy's ass. The guy who can build entire civilizations, but cannot make himself an armor against knives.
So he's an idiot.
Yeah.
And after that, Rocket decides to save not only humans, but animals as well. Rocket, what are you? No! Hey Mitch, you tell.
He's a good guy.
Now that's right. But Quill, while escaping, loses his player and decides to go back for it, when he could go to Earth and buy a new one, or even get it for free for signing an autograph. But exactly at this moment, the doggo runs out of telekinesis power, and Quill doesn't have time to escape, and becomes an ice cream with imbecile flavor.
Delicious.
But Groot saved Adam, so now in exchange Adam saves Quill, who somehow stayed alive after this. What about skin necrosis or ruptured blood vessels? Because as we know, Quill is not even half celestial anymore.
F you, science!
Sadly, Gamora leaves, and she doesn't want to stay with Quill. I suspect she thinks that after this, Quill Quill's blood vessels in certain part of him won't function anymore.
Come on!
Quill.
And because of that, Quill gets so sad that he gives up fun life in space, traveling all around the universe with his friends, and decides to go to Earth and live in a suburb house somewhere in Alabama.
I'm from Missouri.
Drax and Nebula turn nowhere into a kindergarten, and Rocket becomes the new captain of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And his first decision as a captain is to leave a dangerous psychopath alive, who still might have allies or mercenaries who will come to rescue him.
Kill him! Why?
Because I'm a freaking guardian of the galaxy.
No!
You're an imbecile.
You almost have to admire their pluck.
Dude, don't call us plucky. We don't know what it means.